Nicole Danielle.
And I'm Megan Lee, and this is Romance on the Rocks, where two bookish biddies imbibe and read romance novels, which this month we're doing fairies, fanciful creatures. So,
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping these books, at least your book especially, is better than our last face smuts. Because,
Yeah. Last podcast episode was a trial. We'll put it that way. This one, not so much. So I do have a lot more kind things to say about this book.
Good. And this book was listed in a lot of like fantasy, romantasy must read. So I'm excited that you chose this one and I can't wait to hear about it. But first, Megan, tell me, what are you drinking this evening?
Well, so in my book, they drink a lot of mead. And while I would love to say that's what I'm drinking tonight, I am doing a health challenge. So the next couple podcasts are going to be very boring on my part.
Okay.
And so instead, I decided to go for a different fermented drink, and I'm doing kombucha.
Yay, kombucha! I've done it before.
Yes. You know, mead is a fermented beverage made from honey. This is not mead, but it is a fermented beverage. And I'm doing the Mystic Mango flavor from Synergy. And wait, let's see if I can get us some ASMR. What do you think? Oh, I don't know if anybody heard it, but it's kind of like a poof.
I love it. I love it.
Oh, delicious.
Megan, it's actually really funny that you said you're going to be doing a health kick because I made a decision that starting in the month of June, I was only going to drink cocktails in social situations or recording for the podcast because I feel like my wine consumption has gotten a little like COVID days-esque again, and I need to cut back a little bit more. So
yeah, amen, sister. Yeah, we'll see how this goes. If my calculating is correct, my health challenge is going to be over before we are hitting up Milwaukee.
Okay.
By several weeks. I kind of wanted to make sure. I looked at the calendar and I'm like, I think I'm safe. I think we can do this and still be able to party once I get to Romance Con. So starting now was a good choice. But yeah, kombucha, and I like the mango. I don't know if anybody else has had these Synergy ones in particular, but one of my favorite things about them is actually, compared to a lot of other kombuchas on the market, it's really low sugar. It's only 6%. Where a lot of the other ones have, like 18, 20%. So big fan.
I like their Cosmic Cranberry and the Gingerade one.
Yep, those are delicious as well. Okay, so what's your cocktail?
It is called a Fairy Belle.
Ooh.
Gin, lemon juice, peach schnapps, and there's supposed to be a little sploosh of grenadine, of which I have none. Not a single sploosh of grenadine in this house right now. So I did a sploosh of pink lemonade because that seemed like it would fit. It is strong, Megan. I'm going to be chugging a lot more water this evening, I think, than the actual cocktail.
Yeah, I've been feeling pretty rife with the menopause-ness, and so now that I'm riddled with the menopause. That's why the health challenge started now.
Thanks, I almost snarfed my cocktail.
Are you too riddled with menopause?
Oh, honey, that ship sailed, remember? I've been post-menopause for like a decade, so...
Well, you're riddled with the pause.
That's hilarious.
I suppose we should talk about romance and not...
We should talk about these books. Tell me about your fairy smut.
I think I get to take it first. So I had Dance with the Fae Prince. This book is by Elise Kova, and it is from, I don't know if I want to call it a series, Married to Magic, because technically all of these books are standalone. So you don't have to read any particular book, but it's all set in kind of this general world that she's built. Midscape is the fairy world. The novel takes place in this fantasy world where the humans are all living on like one side. They don't necessarily believe that the Fae actually exist, but there's a lot of tall tales, and children are fed these tales of terror terror in order to keep them away from the woods. Our main character is Catria. She lives in a crumbling old estate with her stepmother Joyce, her stepsister Helen, and half-sister Laura. Catria's father is presumed to have been lost at sea. Her life has been one of physical and emotional abuse at the hands of both her stepmother and stepsister. And Catria also had a pretty traumatic accident when she was a child, and she still carries the physical scars on her back from this accident. The accident also involved her stepsister Helen, and ever since that point in time, Joyce has referred to Catria as the little monster, because Joyce is under the impression, or at least blames Catria for almost getting Helen killed in this event. Catria's younger half-sister Laura is the one shining light that she has, but Catria is afraid that in time, Laura is going to learn these bad behaviors and the cruelty shown by the elder women in the house. We find that for most of her life, Catria has been utilized as unpaid labor in this old house. And the author of this book even says that a lot of her premise for this is kind of set on the shoulders of Cinderella. So you can see those dynamics. Now that the father is out of the picture, money is dwindling. Joyce enjoys showing off a lavish lifestyle, and it's mostly all facade at this point because the money has pretty much run out. And because Joyce needs more money to keep up appearances, she's decided to sell off the marrying rights to Catria's hand. Joyce is poised to offer up part of this shipping fleet that was supposedly left behind when Catria's father disappeared as part of the dowry. And in exchange, this person gets Catria that part of the dowry, but he has to pay money because Joyce is looking for the big bucks. Catria surreptitiously overhears the winning proposal for her hand and is shocked to find out that the potential suitor has absolutely no interest in the fleet of ships. It's turned down unceremoniously. Instead, all he wants in exchange is a copy of this old book that has been kept at the estate. Apparently, he's been trying to get his hands on this book for years, and Catria's father would never relinquish the copy. It's apparently one of the very few things that's left in the house that did belong to Catria's mother at some point. So it was one of those precious items. After the deal is done, Catria is whisked away to the estate of Lord Fenwood, to the far north. And it's so far north that it's almost nestled among that dreaded tree line and the forests where the Fae are said to live. And when she first meets her new husband, it becomes very quickly clear that this is not going to be a traditional marriage. First, he refuses to let her look at him. What? Yes. Don't look at me. Seal. Yeah, he keeps himself concealed at all times. The first night she gets there, first of all, she's picked up by his bodyguard or his manservant. She never meets him. She gets taken to this estate. The manservant is like, here's your dinner, here's your rooms, peace. And she's like, wait, do I get to meet my husband? And the manservant seems super weirded out about it. He's real busy.
Okay.
And she kind of stands up for herself and she's like, no, I really think I should meet him. And the manservant's like, yeah, you will one of these days. And she's like, no, I'd like it to be now, tonight. So the manservant's like, okay, I'll see what I can arrange. So he gets her set up in the sitting room. And in the room, there are two chairs and they're back to back. And so he's like, you sit in this chair over here and the master will come in. And so she hears him come in and she goes to start turning around to say hi. And he's like, don't move. Don't turn around. Don't look at me. So they sit back to back and have a conversation. And she's like, well, I kind of glanced a shoulder. She's like, I guess you got a nice shoulder. Yeah, hot shoulder. That's the first rule. They can't see each other. And at one point, she actually starts using a blindfold so she can hang out with them. And her assumption is he must have had some sort of really terrible accident or he's got some sort of disability and he's really embarrassed. And probably one of the reasons that he decided to buy her hand in marriage, too, because maybe nobody'd marry this guy, even though he's fairly wealthy. So that's her assumption. She's like, he's got a nice voice. He's really kind to me, but I can't look at him. Okay, number 2, they do not share a bedroom or have any real physical contact. There's no reason given to why, but he seems to have absolutely no interest in consummating this marriage. So she's just hanging out in the house, not getting to look at the guy she married. Number 3, she's given very strict rules to follow around the house for where she can go. She's only to have access to the front half of the estate, which is fine by her, because the back half touches that forest land. And according to Lord Fenwood, the front half of the estate is under some sort of protection. And so Catria doesn't necessarily believe that the Fae exist, but she's had the lifelong tales, and that's enough to make her uncomfortable. So she's more than happy to be like, cool. She's skeptical about the protection, but whatever. She doesn't need to go near the woods. Number 4, she's also never allowed to leave her bedroom after bedtime. And she is told no matter what she hears, she is not to leave.
Okie doke.
Right. So she's hearing all these weird noises and screaming and banging around. And sometimes she hears laughter and it sounds like there's a dinner party. It's just weird. But even with all this oddness, you can see that Lord Fenwood and Catria are starting to have somewhat of a bond. They often sit in the evenings in the drawing room drinking mead and enjoying conversation. Additionally, Catria is a fairly talented musician. She plays the lute and has a lovely singing voice.
As one does.
You know, so the lute
I love a lute.
doesn't, right? Pluck them strings. So the lute is one of the only other things that her mother left her. The 2 things that were left after her mother died were the lute and the book. Catria knows a lot of older, mostly forgotten songs that were taught to her by her mother before her death. And Lord Fenwood is also well acquainted with these older melodies and finds it both curious and fascinating that she's so versed in this kind of old world music. This also gives them something to bond over. And although she's gotten used to the strangeness of all the hall noises at night, there's clearly something more going on at this manor. One day she's working in the garden of the manor, and there's an event that starts to kind of spiral this unusually idyllic life she's leading. Catria is tricked into wandering toward the woods and is attacked by a violent fae that has been masquerading as a small child. And during the attack, Catria is saved by Lord Fenwood and his manservant. And after this encounter, she becomes far more curious about all those dark noises and what's happening at night. One thing leads to another in the series of a couple days, and she ends up breaking her promise to remain in the bedroom area at night. And this act of daring leads her through this secret tunnel far outside the manor. And there she sees a group of fae performing a ritual with her mother's book. It's that very book that Lord Fenwood required to get with her hand of marriage. And as the fae are about to throw this book onto this roaring fire, Catria leaps out to try and save it because that is one of her few remaining memories of her mother. And in doing so, she inadvertently makes herself part of the ritual and accidentally imbues herself with a shit ton of fairy magic.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah. The rest of this book follows Catria and this group of fae on an adventure through the former kingdom of Avernus. We find out that Lord Fenwood is actually Davian Avernus, the rightful heir to the throne in that part of the Fae kingdom. A line of false kings have been ruling there for decades, and the ritual interrupted by Catria was supposed to return a greater magic to Davian so he could overthrow the tyrants and revive the kingdom. So now there's this huge mess with the magic entirely misplaced, and Catria is stuck in this otherworldly spot, which is on the brink of a civil war, and she does not belong there at all. And that's kind of where I'm going to leave it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. A few things of note.
Yes.
I thought I knew where this was going, and while I wasn't necessarily wrong, it took a couple little twists to get there. So one of the twists toward the middle then made me second guess what I had initially thought and led me in a different direction until it twisted back. And I was like, oh, see, that's where I thought it was going. But I liked the fact that I got misled in the middle because
Kept you on your toes a little bit.
yeah, sometimes it can get too predictable. There was some espionage, and I felt like there was maybe a missed opportunity for one of the characters to actually be in on it. I know that sounds a little weird, but I really thought that this one kind of innocent seeming character would have made a great villain. And then they kept that character innocent the whole time. And I was like, dang, that would have been a pretty good villain. A lot of this book is Catria finding her voice. She had a childhood of being very crushed and doesn't feel comfortable getting positive attention because of that. So she has to allow herself to be cared for and loved. She needs to come to terms with how her past treatment has skewed her view of herself and of relationships. For example, her finding herself. This is a conversation she was having with one of the fae in her group. And she says, why is it that it is so much easier for me to process being treated like a thing rather than a person? How is it that the latter hurts more? And then he responds, because now you know that this is how you should have been treated all along. Because you know that if one person sees you, respects you as they should, then there's no excuse for anyone else not to. The fault does not lie, has never lain with you, but rather the shortcomings of those you have been surrounded by. You were always worthy. Following that, there's a passage between Katria and Prince Davian. She says, I can survive being hurt. And he responds, that's not a way to live. You should never have had to live that way. You survived, and that's commendable, given that I only know a tip of the iceberg of your suffering. But merely surviving isn't any way to live. I want you to thrive. You deserve to thrive. So I thought it was just really, really nice. There's a lot of her having these little breakthrough moments of really recognizing that she deserves to be loved, but also having trouble understanding why the people in her past didn't do that. So yeah, it's a lot of that. I've also got a poetic little section where she's talking about like the first time they're gonna do it. And she says to him, I want you to go slow until I am breathless and begging. And then I want you to go hard. I want you to shatter together and fall like the silvery arcs and shooting stars as we descend from the heaven of our making. I like silvery arcs and shooting stars. It's just pretty.
Oof.
Who
That's
talks
kinda
that poetically, right?
Yeah.
Kinda. Speaking of kinda hot, this book was only kinda hot.
I was going to ask what the spice level was.
We're lucky to be a poblano, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, we're kinda hot. And I will tell you, the Amazon synopsis on this book was very misleading. This is, to quote the Amazon synopsis, A Dance with the Fey Prince is a complete standalone novel inspired by the tales of Psyche and Eros, as well as Cinderella, with a happily ever after ending. A Dance with the Fey Prince features a slow burn romance, swoon-worthy couple, and steaminess that ranges from simmering to sizzling. There's no sizzle, folks.
There's no sizzle.
Ain't no sizzle. Like,
Good to know.
they spend a lot of time kissing, I guess, being like, hey, that was a cool 3 hours of kissing. My face would be raw. I don't want that. And this book is 350-ish pages, and they finally get naked at like 252. So it's a long wait. Yes, it's a slow burn, but I mean a real slow burn. And then for the fun stuff, on page 83, Nicole,
Yeah.
he pinches the bridge of his nose.
Fuck yeah, I did.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he
Yeah,
did.
he did.
And he did it in public even. Finally, thrumming. You know how we love the thrumming. Can I tell you something fun about the thrumming in this book?
Yes.
Ain't nothing to do with sex.
Really?
Yep. I told you she's a musician. Swear to God, every time she starts to play music, they're like, and then the notes were thrumming. The thrumming music, the thrumming drum. Thrum, 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 thrumming on a drum. Yeah. So that is what I've got. Overall, it was a fun read. It only took me, like 2 days to get through it. It was a nice fairy tale. I can totally understand liking the world that Elise Kova has set up. I wouldn't be opposed to reading more of them. It wouldn't be the first thing I went to, but I can definitely see how this would be a compelling series because it was nice and the characters were supportive of each other and people were friendly and helpful, and there was a lot of just coming to terms with your past and finding strength, and just overall just a very positive novel. That's what I'll give it.
Yeah.
How about your fairy world? What do we got for your King Fae over there?
Yes, the Fae King, his temptation, if you will, by Layla Harper. This is the first book in the Court of Bones and Ash series. Brace yourself, Megan. There's 8 books total.
Okay.
And there's compilation volumes. So the first 4 books are in one compilation, the next 2, 5, and 6 are another compilation, and then 7, 8 are in the final compilation. There's a note right at the start of the book explaining that the first 4 books of the series each end with a cliffhanger. And so if you don't like cliffhangers, you may not want to start reading. which I honestly appreciated the fair warning, because then I knew exactly what I was getting into. Unlike when I read The Vikings Chosen from season 1, episode 1 of the podcast, The Power to Heal. I felt like I was thrown for a loop and led into a book that I didn't know was a series, and it didn't really go anywhere and had a cliffhanger. But I felt, at least with this book, I knew exactly what was going to happen. So I appreciated the advance warning. It was published in 2020. It's definitely a romantasy fantasy. Trigger warnings, she gives several, but Megan, I have to be honest, I don't feel like it was that triggering.
Well, everybody's got different levels, so I can respect
Right.
the fact that she at least put it out there.
For sure. So she does warn that there's cursing. That for sure happens. There's a lot of cursing. Violence, gore, kidnapping, death wars, sex, and trauma. There's no fucking sex in that book. No, that's a lie.
So you and I both had some pretty low
Yeah.
libido books.
Yeah.
Okay.
The main characters are Kyra. She is a 21-year-old, almost 22. They point this out several times. Poli-sci major in her senior year of college. She bartends part-time. She is an orphan, and you'll appreciate this, Megan. She grew up in the foster care system, not an orphanage.
For
No.
anybody who misses the reference, that was one of my Christmas books. That was
Familiar Christmas
it was the one
from
with the cat.
season 1, episode 5, Christmas for the Dogs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but what was my book called?
Familiar Christmas.
Familiar Christmas. I was talking when you said that because I was like, it's the one with the cat. Like I remember reading
with
it.
the cat.
That was the book that I said, I don't know why they're together because she's pretty and he's hot.
Yeah. But in that book, they said she grew up in an orphanage, which we figured out, no, that wouldn't be possible. She would have grown up in foster care. So I thought you would appreciate this, that she actually did grow up in the foster care system in this book. So Kyra, she's almost 6 feet tall. She's 5'11", and she's what I call a clear winter because she has pale skin, blue eyes, and dark hair. Then we have Rogar. His name, Rogar.
How, is that like Roger, but not?
Yeah, it's like Rogar.
All right. Roger. Roger.
Rogar. He is an orc king. He's actually half orc and half elf. His mom was an elf. He's about 6 feet tall with black hair, tan skin, and what I call topaz eyes because they're kind of like goldeny browny. And he has pointy elven ears, and when he goes into battle mode, he gets even taller and bigger, and his skin turns grayish, and his eyes turn red, like an orc that you would see in like Lord of the Rings or something.
Yeah.
And he has fangs. I envision the top half of Rogar to be like Thane, the Kraken from the Kraken Sacrifice by Katie Robert from episode 10 of this season, Love in the Deep. He's also almost 500 years old. So we definitely have an age gap romance.
Yeah.
Kyra is in her last semester at college. She's got an interview lined up for an important internship at a prestigious law firm that will help get her the job of her dreams when she graduates. So it's a really big deal for her. To help pay for school, she's bartending at a popular college bar. The bar owner, however, is a creepy older dude who likes to hit on her all the time. Pepper spray warning.
Yeah.
He needs to be pepper sprayed. And he hits on her all the time, but she puts up with it because she really needs the money for school. I kind of get it. The number of times I've bartended and put up with bullshit people just because you're like, it's my job, you know, like.
Yep. You give the you're so funny, and then go do something else and try and get out of there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So her roommate comes home drunk after she's been working all night and starts snoring away. So Kyra decides to go on a little early morning jog. She likes a good run to clear her head, and she's got this big interview coming up. While she's on her run, she goes past this traveling exhibit that's on her campus that includes a weird sculpture with rings. And even weirder, she sees her boss from the bar, and he's doing this weird, creepy smile wave thing at her. And then suddenly, Kyra is transported to another dimension, as one does.
Okay.
I was like, oh, so we're jogging on campus, and boom, we're in a medieval fae realm. Okay.
Was he like a warlock? Was he involved at all?
I'm sure he was involved. I'm on book 3 and they still have not addressed that.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. This is where things also got a little confusing for me at first. When I hear the word fae, I think fairies.
I would tell you that I thought that too. And then while reading this book, it sounded like anything magical or fanciful was falling under that title. And I guess I did not realize that. So it was vampires and
Yes.
werewolves and elves and everything. So Fae is just the all encompassing, which is interesting to learn that this late in our riddled with menopause lives.
Yes, I feel like how did I not realize it was all inclusive?
Right.
Because like your book, then the author Harper is including all manner of creatures in the term fae. Elves, orcs, fairies, pixies, brownies, goblins.
It was definitely the same in my
Yeah.
book, with the Married to Magic novel realm.
Yeah, so that was a new learn for me. And I guess I truly just don't have that much knowledge of the fantasy world because I was like, what?
You're learning.
Uh, yeah, we're learning new things. Isn't this a great journey?
It
Learning so
is.
much. So in this fantasy world, Elfamir? Yes, Elfamir. They're all fae, but they're not all fairies. Okay. That took just a little bit of getting used to for me, but eventually I embraced it and I'm with it now. I get it. So Kira immediately finds herself captured by mysterious beings who are carving a symbol into her hand. She manages to escape and run smack into Rogar and his little band of warriors who have just been in a battle or skirmish of some kind. Anyway, humans haven't been to this land in hundreds of years and they are forbidden. So when she arrives in this realm, there's some kind of magic that kicks in where several of the Fae creatures will feel this instinct to hunt down the human and kill them. And because Rogar happens to be with her, it might look like Rogar's the one who brought her into the Fae realm, which puts him in a responsibility type of situation for it.
Gotcha.
And so Kyra's life is immediately at risk, and the mark on her hand is known as a slave mark, I guess. So someone was marking her to be a slave, but we don't know who. And it's not revealed in this book, and we still don't know by book 3.
Ooh, okay.
Rogar decides, out of a sense of duty for his kingdom and people, that he will help smuggle Kyra through the realm to some high queen of all the kingdoms of Elfamir, who should be able to then help her return to her own dimension. As the journey begins, Rogar discovers that Kyra is his fated mate.
I hate that so much.
I know you do. I know
I
you do.
don't know why that just the ick is up and down my spine when I hear she's my mate. Like, ugh.
And we've
Gross.
seen this whole fated mate thing in a lot of the werewolf smut,
Yeah.
especially. So I was like, boy, here we go. He's going to be all alpha creeper male, fated mate and stuff. And the author, Layla Harper, she does make some allusions that that's what he's supposed to be like, this big alpha male. But I find personally Rogar to be anything but. He's kind and gentle and considerate and caring. He's this gentle giant and super sweet with Kyra, little forehead kisses, and just a really sensitive dude.
I
So
like
I
that.
was like, it was refreshing. I'm like, if we gotta take this fated mate row, like I'll put up with this. As they continue their journey to their first destination to seek help from a witch to disguise Kyra so that people won't know she's a human and they can continue traveling safely from there, they endure a variety of adventures, including a battle with some vampire women. They also spend a large portion of the book traveling through a forest that is perpetually plunged in night, and where they encounter an odd mist that seems to have a unique connection with Kyra. She can feel the mist and communicate with it. And the others are kind of freaked out by the mist, but she's like, oh no, don't worry, it's a good mist. Like, okay. As they reach their first destination, though, Kyra and Rogar are separated when they encounter a group of witches and a troll, and that is where the book ends on a cliffhanger.
Wow.
Spoilers.
Wow. But you said you've got a compilation of
Yes.
the 4, so you can
Yeah.
get to the end of that at least.
Yeah, I'll talk more about that in a hot second. Spice level, poblano. There are some near miss kisses that finally culminate in a kiss with some light grindage. But Kyra and Rogan get interrupted in the middle of that kiss, and that's it. That's all we get. Things I loved. There's a pronunciation guide at the beginning of the book for not only the characters, but the places and creatures that show up in this book. I appreciated it. There's also even a little map of the fantasy world. So you were talking about world building in
Yeah,
your
I have
book.
a map in mine as well.
I love it. And I really feel like Harper was definitely doing some solid world building. She
Mhm.
was explaining the kingdoms, but it was not in a take away from the story. Because we've seen that in previous novels
Yeah.
where they go off on a tangent over and over again about shit that you're like, okay, we get it.
It's not even world building at that point. They're just having a character ruminate on the same stuff over and
Yeah.
over and over.
Yeah. So I felt like this was great world building as well, similar to your book. I appreciated the clear warning at the start that it's a series and has cliffhangers, so I knew what I was getting into, like I said. I dig Rogar. I dig Rogar. He seems like a really cool orc. I was getting Thane vibes where you said if like this is a demon you gotta do a deal with. I could get behind
Yeah.
it, you know? Yeah.
See, and that I will, she's talking about Katie Robert. I will read more of that just to get a demon
Mhm.
book now because I thought the demons were so cool in her book. Anyway.
Yeah. So I dig Rogar. Kyra seems pretty down to earth, and I appreciate her regular use of swear words. My favorite was holy shitsel.
Oh, that sounds very familiar.
I
I
loved
feel
it.
like I'd say something like that. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's swearing every other turn, like fuck, 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 fuck. And like, holy shit, I appreciated it.
Yep.
This book did go back and forth between Rogar's perspective and Kyra's perspective. And what I truly appreciated about this transition of back and forth is it was written truly in the sense of that character, because I don't always see that when there's a flippy floppy. We get a very modern perspective with very modern words and swear words from Kyra. And then when we have Rogar, it's the complete opposite. He's thinking like old medieval times and there's medieval words. So I appreciated that throughout the different perspectives, it remained true to the individual characters. Kyra is also intelligent and tries to hold her own in a realm that clearly isn't meant for humans, and I just appreciated it. I think we all took archery in like gym class at some point.
Sure. Yeah. I think for me, it
Yeah.
was gym class.
Yeah, or Girl Scouts or what have you, depending on your upbringing. But she totally puts that shit to use and tries to hold her own. And I was like, power to you, girl. Way to hang in there. Take one for the team. I mean, she's just this piddly little human, but, you know, she's just trying to, like, hold her own, and I thought it was cute and fun. I also appreciate that Kyra is a taller girl and not some petite 4-foot nothing, so it is a reasonable physical match between her and Rogar. And while there is mention of Rogar having a big
Man root.
yes, Manroot, I forgot about that from last episode.
That's a
So
Bertree Small. That was the best thing that came out of the Bertree Small books was the man root.
Kyra straight up refers to this as a dick. Like, straight up. So she's like, oh my God, he's got a big one. But it's also still reasonably sized and proportional to his overall build. And it's doable, if you will. Totally doable. And it isn't going to kill somebody.
It doesn't have like a prehensile tip or you know.
No.
All right. Fine.
I know. It's only a poblano spice level, Meg.
Just saying.
And truly, the only reason she even spots his dick because she catches him peeing. So it's not like it was for any other reason. There's a lot of instant chemistry and attraction between the two of them, but I appreciated that they weren't magically instantly in love after 2-3 days like we see frankly in a lot of romance novels that we've read. I was worried that that was going to be the case with this whole fated mate thing, but it's not. Book 3 and there's still no oh my God, I'm in love. There's none of that still, so I appreciate that it's a developing of feelings. And Rogar really is committed to helping Kyra get home, even though he believes she is his destiny. But he knows how important it is for her to get home. And he's like, yeah, we'll get you there. I'm committed to doing it. So I appreciate that he's not just out there for himself and like, you're my mate, you will be mine. And that's all that matters. No, he's like, oh, you want to get home? I know it's important to you. Okay, let's do it. I appreciated that. My only challenge, Megan, boils down to communication.
Oh yeah. There's always that.
Rogar doesn't tell Kyra that she is his fated mate, and it's a classic case of the lack of communication. She has all these feelings of conflict about her growing feelings for Rogar, and like she might not be long back on Earth, and that nothing will be the same back home even if she does get there. And he feels all conflicted that he'll eventually have to be separated from her despite their being meant for each other, and I just wish he would fucking tell her. Just tell her, dude. What are you waiting for? There's so many times, Megan, where he's like, "Oh, I have to tell you something, but we'll talk later." I'm like, dude, get to it already.
I don't like that.
I don't either. It's kind of getting annoying at this point because it's constantly a "we'll talk later." No, you still haven't talked about it, and it's been weeks now, dude.
Also, let's just put out there, if somebody kept saying to me that they had something to tell me, but we'll talk later, I would be like, nah, I'm not waiting, because that's annoying, and that gives me anxiety to know that
Oh,
there's
same.
something that you need to say and you're not saying it. Just say it now, please.
Yeah,
Ugh.
same. Same. There's definitely nose bridge pinching in this book.
See, you and I we're clueless. We didn't know about Faye. We didn't know about pinching the bridge of the nose. What have we been doing our whole lives?
Okay, final thoughts on the Fae King's Temptation. After finishing this first book, I couldn't decide how I felt about it. I feel like I was led to believe this book would be smuttier, just like with yours, but it's pretty tame. And while I like Rogar and Kyra, I couldn't decide initially if I liked them enough to keep reading their story. But I feel like perhaps I was too quick to judge back when I read The Vikings Chosen by Quinn Loftus in our first season, first episode. So I wanted to give this series a fair shake, if you will. So I did go ahead and purchase the first book compilation called Of Temptation and Vengeance, which includes the book that we were just talking about, Fae King's Temptation, and then the next three, Fae King's Hunger, Fae King's Sacrifice, and Fae King's Vengeance. I'm already on the third book. It goes real quick, Megan. You said you got through yours in 2 days. I think I've maybe been reading mine for 2-3 days and not devoting full amounts of time to it. It's a really quick read. I think I spent $2.99 on the first book originally. And then I was like, God, I feel like an idiot. I should have just bought the first compilation right off the bat because it's $5.99, but I wasn't sure if I was going to like it.
Right, right.
I wish they would have given me perhaps some ebook credit for letting purchase the first one or whatever, but I'm also happy to support the author. So what it is what it is. Also, $2.99, $5.99 for some books. I mean, I've spent more recently, so it is what it is. I'm already on the third book. Like I said, there's a lot of action. There's a lot of things constantly happening, and things are getting a little steamier finally. I would still probably only put it to the first one I read was definitely poblano. This one, I still don't know if I can even put it at a jalapeno, honestly, Megan, because while they do finally knock the boots, it's brief and there's not a whole lot of descriptors about it.
That is exactly how it was in my book. They got together and the description was maybe one paragraph and there was very little said about it. I was like, oh, okay. No interesting words for any body parts, no nothing. It was just
Right.
like, they got together and she felt some pressure and ooh, and I'm like, okay, that's all we got. Whole book. All right.
Before they end up having sex too, I should say that he does end up eating her out too and getting her off with fingering. Everything was still so brief and not very descriptive, which I know that's how you prefer your books, but I feel like I was promised smut, and I don't feel like this qualifies as smut if I'm
I
being real.
specifically picked this book because it said simmering to sizzling. And I was
Yeah.
looking for something that could be a standalone that would have an actual fairy, because we've been talking about it being fairies. So I knew it was the Fae Prince, but I also knew he was a fairy given what he looked like on the cover. So it met all my requirements. And then I read it and I was like, where's the sizzle?
Where's the tentacles and
I
the
don't see
trauma?
I don't see the sizzle. I'm okay having been duped just because the book itself was a nice read.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like our fairy smut month, there wasn't a lot of smut.
Well, your first book was smutty.
That was icky. There was nothing
No.
about it where I was like, "Ooh, this gets me in the mood for so." It was just icky. So I don't even feel like I can consider that smut. You know what I mean? Like I feel like
Right.
smut needs to make me feel something in a positive direction, not a ugh.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to get to the fourth book and see how that wraps up before I decide from there if I want to finish the series. Because at this point, I'm doing it on my own free choice. It's not for the podcast. I think if you're at all into fantasy romantasy, I would just go for the first compilation right away and see if it trips your trigger because between $2.99 and $5.99, I don't think it's that big of a ebook difference on the price point, you know?
Do you think this would be one that before you're heading off for like a vacation or a cruise that you would then pop for the second compilation?
I think so. I think this could easily be a plane read or a beach read. Absolutely a good travel read. It's very good pacing, I will say. I do commend Harper on the good pacing because never a dull moment. I'm still not sure if the whole Fae thing is my jam. I don't know if it's my realm or genre of peak interest, which I find interesting to say because I like True Blood, I like Lord of the Rings, I like Dark Crystal, but I just don't know if actual Fae romance novels are my jam. I'm still undecided.
I like fantasy novels, so as long as there's good world building, I'm fairly on board. It's not necessarily my first choice of literature in general, but that's because you know that in general romance novels are not my first choice. So I think
Right,
if I was
right.
going to read any fairy novel, I would just read a fairy novel. I wouldn't necessarily pick out one that had to have like romance. Yeah. So would I turn it down? No. Like if there's something that's really well written. So I think it's probably more in my realm than yours. When we had read the werewolf stuff, I realized pretty quickly I don't think that's my jam at all. So I can kind of cut that one out of my my list of things that I enjoy. This is closer. I was really shocked and surprised at how much I was enjoying the underwater stuff because I am terrified of drowning and suffocating and
God, really?
cold, horrible water. I hate being cold and wet. Everything about it is terrible, and I don't understand why people do anything where they can be cold and wet. Ugh, just ick. So I was shocked at how much I was enjoying the cold underwater love romance novels. And I think it just has a lot to do with the authors, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hard to judge an entire genre based on the fact that we read two books in the genre.
Are we talking mermaids or Fae?
Any. That's what I'm saying is like we read, you
Yeah.
know, two werewolf, two fae, two underwater, and I kind of feel like oh, I'm saying that werewolves aren't my jam, but maybe it's just the books I picked.
So hard to say, right? Because we're
Yeah.
just kind of, yeah. For me, werewolves are 100% my jam, but from the perspective of not the fated mate crap, I
And
like
that's where I'm like, is that a huge part of the genre though? Like if you throw that out, is it I don't know. I need to do more research.
food. I think you said there was some mead
Yep, I had mead
for
and
drinks.
there were fairies apparently have special food that humans can't actually I shouldn't say can't eat. They can eat it, but they don't get any nutrition out of it and they don't
Right.
get any flavor from it. And so the food was kind of like, here's some food.
Yeah. So you talked about more of the drink, which was the mead. There's this whole, I think it's probably 2, 3 pages long, where Kyra has to make a fucking drink for her shitty roommate when she's bartending. I'm sorry, I cannot remember what the drink's name is off the top of my head, and I should have written it down. But it is a ridiculously complicated drink and essentially every bartender's nightmare order. And it involves egg whites. And I thought about making it for tonight's episode to stay on theme. And then I was like, no, it sounds like a fucking nightmare to make. It's 12 minutes of shaking. I ain't gonna shake a cocktail for
No,
12
okay.
minutes. Yeah, because you have to basically stiffen it into a meringue. I'm like, fuck that. I am not making a
Absolutely
meringue drink.
not.
Yeah.
No, you need like
So
some sort of like actual drink shaker. Like a human shouldn't be doing that. That's just asking for carpal tunnel. No.
if Kyra was like, I don't want to be making this shit, I don't want to make it either.
Yeah.
Booby prize.
Booby prize. I did say that this wasn't very sexy, right? So my booby was on page 251.
Holy shit! Is that a new record?
It might be. Yeah.
Or
Let's see.
longest wait for a booby reference?
Longest wait. This is Davian follows suit, hands coming alive. His palms and fingers are all over, from my face to my breasts to my hips. Page 251.
Shit, I thought I waited a long time.
Maybe I missed an earlier reference. Maybe I did. If somebody else has read this and can remember where the word breasts came in, if I missed it, let me know. But that was the first time I saw it. It was 250.
Okay, I will tell you the one thing I love about reading ebooks, Megan, is that I can do a word search. And so I started getting to a point where I'm like, has he even fucking talked about her breast or thought about her breast yet? And I was like, I don't think he has, but my God, I'm real deep into this book. So I used my phone and I did a quick little breast search. And I'm like, oh shit, I did miss it. It was back on page 69.
Look at you. Nice.
So page 69. With each inhale, her breasts push against the shiny black fabric molded to her limbs.
Yep, you win.
It sounds sexier than it is because the shiny black fabric is actually just like polyester. But he's never seen
like a
polyester
graduation
before.
gown.
No. It's like a jogging jacket, like a hoodie, and he's just never seen that kind of fabric before. I'm like, oh, that sounds like polyester.
Well, you win.
Just barely. I have to look up though and see
Just
if yours is
69 compared to 251. That's not just barely.
I gotta look though and see if that's the longest wait we've ever had for a boob reference. I'm intrigued to figure it out.
It's a long wait.
So, romantic reminder, Megan.
Yeah. It's hard to figure out how to say this one. I wrote it down as division of responsibility.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but to extrapolate
don't let your person see your face.
Yeah. Try and go incognito. Wear a blindfold. There's your romantic reminder. Actually, that's so much more straightforward. I was going to get all like into the weeds. So hold on. What I was going to say is division of responsibility, because throughout this book, she grows up having most household chores and things like that thrust upon her. So she feels like she has to carry all of that. And then she gets into this relationship where she has to trust another person to also carry part of the load, and being able to allow for that division of responsibility and want to take on part of that for your partner is a really good thing in a relationship. So not necessarily romantic, but I find it to be really good in the relationship building. But I also think Nicole's right. Just wear a blindfold. There's that.
As far as a romantic reminder, oh my God. My first instinct was like, fucking communication. It's always communication. But then it's like, no, Nick, look beyond that. And so what I gleaned from book one is it can be nice to appreciate the physical differences in your partner. So despite being technically different species, Kyra's a human, Rogar's an orc/elf, they both really appreciate each other's physical attributes. Even the things that would be considered weird or gross or taboo or different by their own individual kinds, they just really seem to fully embrace the differences that make each of them who they are. And I thought that was good because we're told one thing by our society, right, of what's deemed attractive, but it's kind of nice sometimes to just look at your partner and be like, let's throw all of society's constructs aside and see what I find attractive and what I appreciate about their physical attributes. So I thought that was a good thing, if it makes sense.
It does. It does. And I'm glad it wasn't communication, because I feel like our audience can be like, yeah, we know. We know. Guys.
Stop talking about communication all the time. But my God, if people would just communicate.
Seriously.
No, I knew I couldn't say that again. I was like, no, can't talk about communication. It's gotta be something different.
Everybody knows how we feel about that. All right, so we both had some pretty prude books this time around, but they were both good.
It was no black wool pants and milk and cookies. That's all.
Yeah.
But it was also not, I mean, we were promised fairy smut, and I feel like
the smut wasn't delivered, but I would rather have a well-written story than a ton of smut with just a crap plot line. So I'm okay with this. Well, we've got July coming up.
We're going Christmas in July. I'm excited. I'm ready for the cowboy Christmas. What did you pick for Christmas in July?
All right. So my book is called All I Want Is You. It's by Fallon Ballard. All Jessica has ever wanted is her own happy ever after. But until that happens, she spends her days as a small-time romance writer, penning satisfying happily ever afters to soothe the heartache left by her ex-boyfriend Nick, also a romance writer, and now her biggest rival, who has found success writing love stories without happy endings. It's what he's good at, after all. So when they're professional, I know, ouch, right? So when their professional obligations bring them to a remote inn a few days before Christmas, they're a little more than peeved, especially when they get trapped, sharing a room in a snowstorm. But what's more fitting for two romantic writers in a slump? Realizing the friction between them might be the only cure for their writer's block, they decide to turn their frustration into fiction. And the pages start flying. But will Jess's heart soar too? Nick is the last guy on earth she should love. But what if he's really all she wants for Christmas?
Wow. I feel like I've read this synopsis.
20% off the cover price at Target. So if you're a Target shopper,
Yes. Yes.
you may
my
have
God.
seen it on the shelves. What do you got for Christmas?
Cowboy, It's Christmas by our favorite Heatherly Bell. I
Yeah.
couldn't resist. I saw this handsome man and I was like, okay.
Yeah, take that cowboy hat home.
I am. This Christmas, Stone Ridge could use a miracle. Wounded ex-rodeo star Wade Cruz is consumed with making a success of his family's ranch. He's not looking for a wife, and he has no time to participate in Stone Ridge's version of a dating show, Mr. Cowboy. Married? Him? No way. Daisy Carver knows what she wants for Christmas this year. A chance to prove to Wade she's more than Peanut, his best friend's sister. She suggests a fake relationship to get the contest off his back and to give herself time to show him how good things could be if they were real. But when a family secret threatens to derail Daisy's world, it could mean the end of everything she knows and loves.
They have a Christmas competition called Mr. Cowboy. I love it so much. Enjoy your cowboy.
I'm excited. I love a man of Stone Ridge.
Well, there you go.
But I don't remember Wade. Okay, maybe I just was not paying close enough attention. But in the last book I read from Stone Ridge, I don't remember a Wade Cruz or a Daisy Carver. So I'm excited.
How is Cruz spelled?
Cruz.
Oh.
Cruz.
Adam Cruz was one of my characters in Charming.
Are we sensing a potential?
I don't know.
tie?
I wonder if we got like some cousins or something going on between series. Just saying.
Okay. I just sneaked a peek at the prologue, and it mentions Bo Stevens, who is the brother of our Sadie Stevens from my book that I read before.
Yep. All right. All the crossover.
I love it. I love it.
It is going to be good.
All right. I feel like we've covered everything and then a whole lot of shit we didn't need to cover.
Absolutely. So thank you for joining us today for Romance on the Rocks. Please like, subscribe, and follow. And if you are a hopelessly romantic fellow bookish biddy like us, think about giving us a review on Apple iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you catch your podcasts. Your support really means the world to us. Until next time, stay safe and know that you are loved.
Want to show Romance on the Rocks podcast your love? It's easy. Visit www.buymeacoffee.com/romanceontherocks. You can buy us a book or two and show us your love and support. Thanks in advance.